Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media, including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to speak with Adiel Gorel. He is one of the leading experts on real estate and real estate investment in the United States and around the world. He's the author of 5 books, including his Amazon bestseller, Remote Control Retirement Riches. He has lectured and conducted seminars all over the world, including at Stanford, Cisco, Meta, Intel, Microsoft, Berkeley, Amazon, many others. He's also been featured on Fox Business, ABC, NBC, Fortune, Entrepreneur Magazine, and is regularly featured in local San Francisco Bay Area and Los Angeles area media. He even has his own public television real estate show called Remote Control Retirement Riches, which is still airing in its 6th year. His dynamic and entertaining on-stage presence led him to be featured on TEDx in 2023, and it has been viewed more than 1 million times. Welcome to the show, Adiel.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. And I'm so biased because I love real estate as sort of an investment class, as a way to build lasting wealth for generations to come. I'm big in that area, as you probably know. But when I have this show and I have guests on the show, I have people from all over, not just the real estate sector. We have people on the show that talk about industry and business and entrepreneurship in sort of all sectors. But whenever I have a guest come on who talks the real estate language, I get extra excited. So tell me a little bit about your journey and how you ended up where you are today, speaking and teaching on this important topic.
So actually, that relates to something that you and I discussed a little while ago. You used a term that I really liked, the term entrepreneur. That means somebody who works in a job, but would like to be an entrepreneur. But it's a little bit of a leap. And I went through that leap, so I can talk to that. So my background is not at all in business or in real estate. I'm an electrical engineer and computer scientist. I used to live in the heart of Silicon Valley in Palo Alto, did my graduate studies at the university there, taught at the university, and then I finally got a job in Silicon Valley. That was a long time ago. So long that we didn't have Google, we didn't have Meta, no Amazon. So I was hoping that I would get a job at the place that I really wanted to work at, which was Hewlett-Packard Labs in Palo Alto, not far from where I was living. And I did get that job. So I got the job, and right away I thought, whoa, they're paying me so much, because Hewlett-Packard paid me much more than Stanford did. It's very much like today you have a young person gets a job at Google and they think, wow, they're paying me a good salary, that kind of a thing. So I was a young guy getting paid very well, in my opinion. And then in my research group at HP Labs, we had some people who were not so young. They were in their 50s and 60s. So I thought they must be very wealthy, working here for 30 years, making this kind of great salary. They must be wealthy. When I got to know my colleagues, I realized they were not wealthy. They owned their own home and a 401k, but that was it. So I thought, whoa, I don't want to end up like this financially. I'm going to need to build something by myself. So I grew up in a family of real estate developers. Not that I cared what my family did as a child, I just wanted to play, but I still was exposed to the power of what happens when you own real estate. So I said, okay, great. Look, I live in Palo Alto. I have a great job. My salary is great. My credit is great. My expenses are very low. I'm single. I'm going to start building an empire by buying rental homes. That was in the 1980s. I don't want to scare you. Yes, I started when I was 1 year old. No, I didn't. But back then in the 1980s, everybody had a mantra, which was only buy within 30 minutes drive of where you live. So I did that. I followed what everybody did. I was living in Palo Alto and I was buying in Sunnyvale, in San Jose, in Silicon Valley, basically, within range. After a few homes, I realized I couldn't build a big empire in Silicon Valley because the numbers were not friendly. The rents were way too low relative to the prices. It wouldn't have worked. So I said, okay, I want to continue, but I'm going to break that 30-minute drive rule and find a place where the numbers are friendlier. I did a little research. Of course, in the 1980s, I didn't have the web, and Sergey Brin and Larry Page were in kindergarten. But I still had access to my lab at Stanford, and there they had the ARPANET. That was the precursor to the internet. So I did a little research and I realized if I flew about an hour and a half out of San Francisco, I would hit a small city by the name of Las Vegas. And I could see that I could buy homes in Vegas that would cost about 1/4 of the Silicon Valley price. But amazingly, the rents they were getting were much closer to 1/2 of the Silicon Valley rents. Obviously, that was much better. So I started flying to Vegas every weekend. I always looked younger than my age, and back then I looked like a boy. The people in Vegas had never seen anybody that was buying out of state. They thought I was there to waste their time. Very skeptical. So I spent the first couple of months doing what I knew I had to do. Look for local property management firms. Because obviously, if I was living in California and I was going to buy in Nevada, I would need a property manager firm locally. So after a couple of months, I had a property management firm that I liked. I was still very nervous because I didn't have a chance to really test them in the field yet. And finally, a broker took pity on me and said, okay, I'm going to find you homes. And I started buying. I was always very aggressive. So in my first year, I bought 22 homes in Vegas. Now, before anybody gets impressed by that number, I'll tell you, the average home I bought in Vegas back then cost $39,000 for the whole house.
Wow.
Not only that, but back then, Fannie Mae didn't have a limit on the number of loans you could have, like they do now. And even as an investor, I could buy with only 10% down with PMI, which is what I did. So financially, for somebody who made a good salary in Silicon Valley, buying the 22 homes was not very daunting. Still, I had never met a person before who owned 22 homes. So that was I owned a few more because I had already bought in Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. My friends in Silicon Valley made terrible fun of me the whole year. What are you doing? You're going out of state? Are you insane? Nobody buys out of state. But after a year, when they saw me with my 20 plus homes and the logic of the engineers started working, they said, we get what you're doing. We want to do the same. I said, you should go do it. It'll change your life. It'll change your future. And they said, come on, you work here too. We don't have time for anything. We barely have time to go to the bathroom. You are there with your managers and your properties. How about you lead us? I said, well, okay, I will lead you. So I led a group of about 20 engineers from Silicon Valley. And over 3.5 years or so, we bought roughly 250 homes in Vegas. Not as a group. She bought 6 homes for herself. He bought 4 homes for himself. I bought a couple more, like that. During those 3.5 years, I made a trivial discovery that even the very timid and cautious engineer who bought just one little home in Vegas as a test enjoyed the clout, the power that comes from 250 homes. Because the service providers, especially the property managers, knew if he wasn't happy, he would come to me. And now, I wouldn't be happy. And every other manager in Vegas was courting me all the time. Move to us. We are better. We are cheaper. We are prettier. We are taller. Who doesn't want to manage 250 homes, plus the many dozens more we may buy in the future? So I started really enjoying this. I was enjoying it more than my tech life. And then, because what I was doing was so unusual, I started getting invited to speak about it to all kinds of investment groups. So in one of my lectures in San Francisco, unbeknownst to me, there was a reporter for the local San Francisco paper. In the Sunday paper, there was an article about this and about me. That led to me being interviewed on the morning news on the local NBC channel. I just started really liking it a lot. So finally I said, maybe it's time for me to become an entrepreneur, to drop the umbilical cord of the salary I'm getting as an engineer and go full-time and start a company that does it. And those were the times where I would have the sleepless nights because you're going to give up on the security, on getting insurance, on getting a steady salary. And that was a difficult time, the transition. But I finally pulled the plug on my high-tech life, started our company. In the past 40 years, my investors bought more than 10,000 homes in about 30 markets, but the principle remained the same. In every market we go, we interview local property management firms based on recommendations. We interview local brokers based on recommendations. Of course, it's gotten easier because now we have a reputation, so they want to work with us because they know we could buy a lot of homes with them. And we simply have markets where our investors bought more than 1,000 homes, even more than 2,000 homes, and even one metropolitan area where we bought more than 3,000 homes over 21 years. But the principle is the same. After a few years, I realized it's better to buy brand new homes. I'm not going to explain it now, but I have a series of magazine articles I wrote by invitation for investment magazines. I'll be happy to share with you and your listeners. And one of them explains why brand new homes. So we do the same thing. We are in various markets across the US, and we buy brand new homes, and we have local managers that take care of the homes for us. But now I need to introduce another layer into the discussion. And that layer is the topic of the TEDx talk that I was invited to do a couple of years ago. And that is a very special topic. In the United States, and to the best of my knowledge, only in the United States, we get something that I consider to be the biggest financial gift in the world. Everybody knows the name of this gift, but hardly anyone thinks about what it truly means. In fact, the only person that really got what it means before I explained it was Warren Buffett, who was in touch with me in 2012, but he's already very wealthy. And so, I actually have a message. Some people ask me, you are a big investor. You lead your investors. You still are your biggest investor. You've been doing it for 40 years. Why aren't you retired? Well, I'm not retired because I have a message which is life-changing. Let's talk about this unbelievable gift that is given only in this one crazy country called the United States. The name of the gift? The 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So people are listening and probably saying, what? Everybody knows that. Well, come on, there's nothing new here. Well, here's what it looks like when I speak in Europe. I tell the Europeans, my American investors have a loan called 30 years fixed that they can take. The European says, well, what does that mean? I say, like the name implies, the mortgage payment, principal and interest, is fixed for 30 years. Then it goes to zero. Fixed. And also the loan balance, how much you owe, even though it goes down every month with your principal payment, also doesn't keep up with inflation. In fact, I believe the only two things in the US economy that don't keep up with inflation is the monthly payment and the loan balance. The Europeans are very incredulous. They say things like, I'm sorry, but you clearly don't know what you're talking about. I can't believe I drove 100 kilometers to hear you speak. What you're saying is impossible, and we are going to prove it to you with logic. You have inflation in the US, right? Right. All the time, right? Yes. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's higher, but it's always there, right? 40 years ago, you bought a postage stamp for 4 cents. Today, it's 72 cents. 40 years ago, you went to the movies in San Francisco for $2. Today, it's $15. If you go to Whole Foods and buy a beautiful organic avocado, it's going to be $3. You know, I know, everybody knows, in 10 years, it's probably going to cost $6. How could anyone be moronic so as if to give you a loan that will never change in the face of everything going up all the time with inflation? Because inflation erodes the value of the dollar. You need more dollars to buy the same goods all the time. The cost of shoes, the cost of sweaters, the cost of rent, house, everything keeps up with inflation, but your mortgage doesn't. If this were true, which of course it can't be true because you're stupid and you don't know what you're talking about, they say, it would be the biggest financial gift in the world. It would erode the real value of your loan in real dollars, day after day, month after month, year after year, building wealth like crazy, and you're not going to have to wait for 30 years. Probably after 10 years or so, your loans are going to look like a joke. They're absolutely right. So when I ask them to do a search, and they immediately see we do have something called 30 years fixed, the next question is always the same. If you can get this unbelievable gift, why don't every American runs out every day, dropping everything else to get as many of those gifts as they can? It'll make them rich. My answer is always the same. I don't know, but I sure did. So that's the message. That's why I'm not retired. It's life-changing. So I'll give you one example out of many thousands. Since I've been doing it for decades, I have many thousands of examples. So here's an example. One of my investors gives me a call. He says, remember me? I used to work in Silicon Valley. I started investing in my early 40s. I bought just one home with you guys because I wanted to make sure that the local property managers really do the heavy lifting because I don't have time. They did. I was happy. I understood what you explained about the 30-year fixed rate loan, and I wanted to put the minimum down payment so I get the biggest loans I could, the biggest gifts I could, plus stretch my money. So I bought 19 homes. Again, it's not as impressive as it sounds. At the time he was buying those homes in his early 40s, he was buying brand new homes for about $150,000 each, putting a minimal down payment. He bought 19. Then he says, last year I turned 55. I looked at my 19 homes and all of them had a loan with 17 years left, not even halfway through the 30-year term. But I noticed that even though when I bought them, I put a minimal down payment and my loans were very high relative to the value of the homes I was buying, after 13 years, my loans were roughly 25% of the value of the homes. Well, obviously, that's what inflation does to something that never moves while everything else keeps going up in price. He said, I was ecstatic because over 19 homes, I had millions of dollars in equity. But he said, then I took it one step further. I took 4 of the 19 homes and I sold them. I didn't do anything fancy, no 1031 exchanges, nothing. Just sold the 4 homes, paid my tax, and I used the proceeds to pay off the remaining small 15 loans. And now with 15 free and clear homes, I retired from my Silicon Valley job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then he adds the one sentence that every investor says in the future. I should have bought more. Yeah. So that's extreme. Even I say it, and I bought so many. So, it's very powerful, very life-changing. So the 30-year fixed rate loan is only given on 1 to 4 residential units. In many markets, the good neighborhoods only have single-family homes. So mostly you look at buying single-family homes so you can get the 30-year fixed magical gift. We like to buy in the Sun Belt states. I've been a student of the demographics in this country for decades. To me, if you look at the census even, the demographic wave goes to the south. So we like to buy in states like Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I don't buy in the Midwest, not in the North. Now, in these southern states, I like to buy in large metropolitan areas for job and economic diversity. Then I also like to buy in the suburbs. Families with kids, very stable. The kids go to school. It's like a root in the ground. Then I already said I like to buy brand new home. So I think on my TEDx talk, I say the steps are very simple. Buy a brand new home in the suburbs of a large metropolitan area that's affordable in the Sunbelt states. Put a relatively small down payment. Get a 30-year fixed rate loan. Let the local property manager lease out the property for you, and then proceed to do the hardest action for a human being to do. Nothing.
Waiting. Patience.
Just wait. And within 12 to 14 years, it changes your life. So I'm very passionate about it. And luckily, many thousands of people have benefited from it, and many thousands more can. So that's my message, basically.
It's amazing. And okay, let's talk about the one thing that like today, so we're in the year 2025, and a lot of people that I talk to, because I work in the real estate world, they're saying, no, real estate's great and all, but I'm going to wait until the economy's better, or I'm going to wait until I have that next promotion, or I'm going to wait until interest rates come down again. And so they're sort of trying to time the interest rate markets. What do you say to people like that who are trying to sort of wait for that magical interest rate to show up again before they jump into the market?
Well, Flavia, this is a phenomenal question. Really, a great question. Thank you for it. So I'll begin by saying, when somebody tries to time the market in anything, including stocks, usually doesn't end well, right? The most successful stock investment guy in the history of time is Warren Buffett. He's a long-term holder. But I will say this, the media tends to make everything about 100 times bigger. That's just normal. And the media grows bigger. It used to be just the TV and the newspapers. Now we have TikTok and Facebook, So here is the real knowledge from the field, not what the media says. When we had the COVID time and the Fed lowered interest rates to the lowest point in the history of all time, where a homeowner could get a loan for 2.5% and an investor for as low as 3.25%, the media pounced on it and pumped millions of people saying, buy, the rates are low, this is the time, buy. So millions of people jumped in, they listened to the media, and they wanted to buy. So demand became unbelievably high in many markets. Supply actually was still suffering from the COVID supply chain problems. It was low. So when the demand was so high, supply was so low, what happened? In many markets, prices shot up like crazy. But in addition, we like to buy brand new homes, as I already said. So you buy those from builders. The builders got so much demand, they said, we can be choosy. We don't want to work with investors at all, only homeowners. Homeowners get a 3.5% FHA loan. They fall in love with the home. We don't want investors. So during the time when the rates were the lower, we barely could find a home to buy, and we spent months on waiting lists. Then inflation reared its ugly head. Interest rates went up. What did the media do? Oh my God, the rates are so high. Don't do anything. Stop. Sit on the sidelines. Wait for rates to go down, right? That's what we are hearing now too. Well, guess what happened? The builders have been working diligently to make supply more plentiful. Demand has plummeted thanks to the media's message that the rates are too high. So now those builders are very friendly to investors. They love investors. They will give you all kinds of gifts, including, very ironically, the gift of buying down the rate. I'm seeing builders buying the rate from 6.75 to 5 or 4.75 even. But the media doesn't know it because the media just writes headlines. So now is an amazing time to buy. The sellers are happy to work with you. They give you gifts. They even buy down the loan. So what does the logic says for the savvy investor? Buy when it's easy to buy, when the prices are comfortable, like now. And then later, when the rates go down, refinance down. And people will say, yeah, but refinance costs money. Yeah, it's easy to see whether it's worthwhile to refinance or not. And lenders know how to build in the costs into the rate and into the loan, which you pay over 30 years fixed. Yeah, and inflation keeps eroding. So it's easy to see. Now, here's what happens to the people who wait. So somebody's sitting on the sidelines, waiting, like the media says, waiting. And then let's say the rates go down. I don't know if they'll go down back to 3. Maybe they go down to 5. The media is going to go, buy. Millions of people are going to jump in. Demand's going to skyrocket. Supply is not going to hold. Prices are going to shoot up. Once again, you compete with 50 other people on a house. Nightmare. Buy when it's easy and nice. Refinance when the rates go down.
And you know what? If the rates come down substantially and the media goes nuts and everyone wants to buy, prices go up because that's how economics works. Guess who's going to be thrilled? All the people who bought today before that big price bump and now have all that equity. And I'm with you. Everything you're saying right now, I feel like you're cheerleader. I'm like fist pumping. Yes. This is the truth. Again, none of us have a crystal ball, but we're all out here doing the best we can with the information we have. And what I love about your mission, Adiel, is that you are out there giving people information and data and real case studies and the numbers. And you have examples of people who have really not just changed their own lives, but I think, changed the lives of all of their descendants ahead of time, right? Because of building this family legacy. I could talk about this for hours.
In fact, I've seen the life of descendants change in the present because people send their kids to the best schools in the country. They don't have to think about paying for the 4 years of college. All they need to do is refinance or sell one of their many houses, and boom, that's 4 years at Stanford without even feeling it.
Amazing. So again, I could talk about this for hours, but your time is so valuable. So focus us in on how can people learn more about what you do and where can they find your TEDx talk? Where can they find your television show? And how can you help people further?
Okay. So as I said, I decided not to retire. I started all of this when I was 29. I could have retired quite well when I was 42. I'm not retired, but I needed to find balance in my life. So I create music in my home studio. Actually, you can find my music on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Music. Just look up my name. And then I also have a health and wellness podcast because I'm interested in that my whole life. But I dedicate more than half my time to talk to people one-on-one because I feel like this is life-changing. So I'd be happy to talk to any one of your listeners. All you need to do to get in touch with us is go to our website, icgre.com, and set up an appointment. Our staff, and I'll talk to you one-on-one. All I do is, since I'm an investor in many markets, I need property managers to handle my properties. I need brokers to find me my property. I will connect you to the same teams that I use myself to buy my own properties, and we will support you. And they really care about us because they got so much business from us, so they care about you. We will connect you. You'll work with them directly, and we are here to support you to build your wealth. I recommend that people start small. Sometimes I get a call from Silicon Valley. Some guys say, I just sold a company. I want to buy 100 homes. I say, how about you buy one? Just to get used to the idea, buying out of state. It's a brand new home, get it rented. Then buying home number 2 is just a repetition of the same thing. buying home number 4 is downright boring, but we will hold your hand. Now, also, I'll be happy to send the magazine articles, a link to the TEDx talk, a link to the TV special that I was invited to do for PBS. To anybody who wants, should send us an email, info@icgre.com. And we can share. If you want to find my TEDx talk now, just go to YouTube and plug in my name, Adiel Gorel, and the word TEDx. You'll find my TEDx talk right there. And whatever you need, we will help you, because the reason I'm not retired is I'm passionate. This is life-changing. And people don't use this amazing gift nearly enough.
Adiel, that is extremely generous. Again, I'll repeat the domain name, icgre.com. I think you are on a wonderful mission. I think there's so many people whose lives could be permanently improved by sort of expanding the horizon of where they see themselves. Again, this is not a short term, it's not a get rich quick thing. I've always told people real estate is a long game. So the sooner you get started, sort of the sooner you'll get there, because it's one of those things that I have seen personally change people's lives in ways you can't imagine. Like you said, sending kids to school, having more options, having more security in a lot of different ways. And for people that I'm speaking to right now who are listening to us have this conversation, who still rent and don't own their own home, talk to an expert, talk to a real estate agent, talk to a lender, see if there's a way to get yourself even just on that first rung of that real estate journey for yourselves and for your family in the future. Adiel, parting words from you for the day. I'd love to hear just your inspiration for anybody that's still feeling sort of lethargic and just kind of wanting to be head in the sand and not deal with all of this and not really do the research. What would you say to someone as your parting words today?
Flavia, if you don't mind, I'll say 2 things, and maybe it'll take me a minute. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, the one thing is related to what you just said, buying your own home. One of the articles I'll be happy to share with your listeners is, should I buy my own home first? And the answer really is, it depends. It depends where you live. In the expensive San Francisco Bay Area where I live, where you need to pay $1.7 million or 2.2 to get a good home, it may be wiser to rent and buy investment homes instead in much more affordable markets, which, by the way, I did for my first 20 years. People said, if you're such a big real estate guru, how come you're renting? I said, because I'm logical. The rents were low relative to the high prices. I was renting here and buying over there. So that's one thing. The other thing is, people need to understand what cash flow really means. And one of the articles I can share is, what does cash flow really mean? And people have the notion that cash flow needs to be good on day one. But these are long-term investments, 12 to 14 years. It's get rich slow. When you put a small down payment and you buy when the rates are high, obviously when the rates get lower, you refinance and it'll become much more positive. But even if it starts out break even or even slightly negative, it's very temporary. The rents keep up with inflation over time, but the mortgage payments, the PI, never changes. So it'll get more and more positive. So people have to realize, when you buy, the first year, the cash flow comes from your job. That's what you eat from. That's what you charge your car from. But you give it a few years and give it 12 to 14 years, and you may never have to work again. The homes will feed you.
Absolutely. Amen to that, all of it. Thank you, Adiel, for being who you are and giving back so much of what you know, because there's a lot of people that would find your kind of success and sort of run with it on their own and not necessarily share it with everybody else. I love that one of the first things you did was tell all of your coworkers and people that you knew in your life, hey, you should do this too. And you were even willing to hold everyone's hand and take them there. And I think you're doing that to this very day. And that speaks volumes to who you are as a person and your soul and what you're putting out into the world, which, of course, like karma tends to do, has come back to you as well in spades. So continue on this journey. You are an amazing gift. Thank you, Adiel, for being on the show today. and sharing those gifts with us.
Thank you very much, Flavia.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness. But money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions, and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use a coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.